knows me knows that this theme of meaning and purpose has been huge for me over the last several years. And I'm going to be honest, is often when I hear those words being thrown about, it often sounds kind of fluffy. A lot of the things that people are talking about in meaning and purpose, it's kind of just those fluffy buzzwords, and I'm really not a fan of it. Because it seems like everywhere we turn, someone's talking about find your purpose, live with purpose, find your meaning in life, purpose this, meaning that. It's these buzzwords that are everywhere. And so when I'm talking about meaning and purpose, and unfortunately I don't have any better words to use, but what I'm talking about is something that's much deeper, and it's much more complex than anything that we could just cover today. So bear that in mind as I'm giving you a really kind of brief overview, but it is so much deeper than what I'm talking about today. And in my own life, without this understanding of meaning, I don't think I could have ever survived some of those dark hours of my life. And so there came a point where I was literally clinging to life, holding on to this idea of suffering with meaning. It was a place where I was in tremendous suffering emotionally. There was so much going on, and I could have given up. I could have lost hope, but I held on because I had this deep knowledge in the depth of my soul that I had to press on no matter how hard. Recognizing that I was born for a purpose that was far greater than just myself. And even being here with you today, that is part of that purpose that I have. And even though I'm experiencing this dramatic crisis unfold around the globe along with the rest of you, I'm going to continue forward in my trajectory no matter what hurdles I need to jump, no matter what walls I need to climb or barriers that I need to tunnel under or hazards to go around. When we have meaning in our lives and experience that deeply and intensely, it becomes a driving force that gets us through day after day and press on no matter what the obstacles are. And so why is meaning and purpose so important? First of all, it is better than happiness, because the pursuit of happiness, and I'm going to talk about the happiness paradox here. The pursuit of happiness most often results in less happiness. I know that sounds weird, but this is the problem with pursuing happiness is happiness, and I've explained this to people so many times over the last little while, the word happy comes from the same root as the word happening. And happening is something that happens by luck or by chance. And so when we think about happiness, it's not really something that we can pursue because it's fleeting, it's temporary. Where when we're pursuing happiness, what often results is people end up feeling less positive emotions in their life. They feel less satisfied with their life. They have more depressive symptoms because happiness won't last. And so seeking meaning is better than happiness because it increases our overall well-being. It increases our life satisfaction. It improves our mental and physical health. It enhances our resiliency. It makes us so much more resilient. It builds our self-esteem. It decreases our risk of becoming depressed. So this is one of the things I'm hearing a lot of people is talking about anxiety and depression right now during this isolation. And by having meaning and seeking meaning, it decreases that risk for depression and anxiety. And the pursuit of meaning is something that's unique to just humans. This is not something that animals do. You don't have a dog sitting around contemplating his life. But we need to think these hard questions because that is what's going to carry us forward. If we only live for today, we can just be stuck in the today. And if we really want to thrive, we need to be moving forward in a forward trajectory. We need to be making sure that we are applying these principles of meaning in our lives. So meaning lasts so much longer than happiness. Happiness is just felt in the here and now. It's very transient. It's fleeting. We can be happy one minute and sad the next. Meaning in life, though, is much more enduring. It connects our past and our present and our future, and it gives us a sense of more purposeful, cohesive, and satisfying life. Philippians 4:11 says, I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. So for me, when I think about that, this is about focusing on what I have, even when it's very little, even when there's not a lot of resources available. It's me trying to do my best with what I have rather than focusing my attention and energy on the things that I don't have. There's a quote here from Elise Boulding. She was an American Quaker sociologist, and she said, "For the real difference between happiness and joy is that one is grounded in this world and the other in eternity. Happiness cannot encompass suffering and evil. Joy can. Happiness depends on the present, where joy leaps into the future and triumphantly creates a new present out of it." Now, meaning is also a natural way of healing and flourishing. Viktor Frankl said, "The quest for meaning is the key to human health and human flourishing." So this means be who you were meant to be and be your best through being aligned with nature's laws of values. And we all have, as human beings, have a natural capacity for meaning seeking and meaning making. So we can seek out meaning, but we can also create meaning. We can make meaning in our lives. We have this inherent need to make sense of our lives. So this is the making meaning out of the information that we have. And we can look around the world around us, and we can attribute meaning to those things. We can draw conclusions. We can take various pieces of information and we can put them together to create something new. And so humans really need to devote themselves to something greater. This is another principle around this. We need to have something that's bigger than ourselves that we're devoted to, something that's more than just ourselves. So for example, for some people, that something greater is their children, and making sure that their children grow up with good sense of values and knowing right and wrong and knowing that they're loved. And that is where we find our value. That may be something that you're devoted to. You may be devoted to helping with a charity or doing volunteer work. You may have a higher sense of, or a message that you need to get out into the world, and maybe that's your something greater. And so when we think about this idea of meaning, most of the human problems that we face is because people are not living in harmony with nature's laws of mental health. So nature or God provides simple, meaningful solutions to mental health. And so if we follow, there's these three basic concepts that basically encompass all of these rules. Is everyone has worth or value. So knowing yourself, everyone needs connections. We have to be connected. So knowing where you belong. And the third one is around task and role. And you need to know your purpose and you need to have meaningful work. You need to be working at something that is meaningful to you. And so answering that question, what is my meaning and purpose, is a very individual process, and it requires some assessment of our motivations. So there's two basic types of motivations. There is the extrinsic motivation, but this is motivation that comes from outside of oneself. And so this comes in the form of either we're doing something because there's a reward in it, or it's avoiding a punishment. So being that external motivation, the extrinsic motivation. We're not doing it because it's satisfying or because there's enjoyment in it, but because of what we get out of it or because of what we're going to avoid getting out of it. So if we need to know what motivates us externally. For example, an external motivation is when your alarm goes off in the morning because it's saying it's time to get up and go to work. An extrinsic motivation says, I don't really want to go to work, but I need to go to work because I don't want to lose my job, right? So it motivates us. or because we're getting something out of it, because it's money coming in. We need to go to work in order to have money coming in. Those are external motivations. Intrinsic motivation, it comes from within us. It's participating in activities just because they are personally rewarding or bring us joy. So intrinsic is we do it because we love to do it, because we want to do it. And the behavior itself, or the action itself, or the task itself, the work itself, in itself is the reward. So if you have a job that you believe is meaningful, that you love your job, then when the alarm goes off in the morning to tell you it's time to get up, your motivation is coming from inside instead of just the fear of losing your job or because you require money to live. So exploring those motivations, thinking about all of the different things that we do within the context of our value system. What is important to us? We talked about values yesterday. You did the value assessment yesterday. So our passions begin to take center stage when we start exploring our motivations. And we can then start to see what's really important to us and what we want our lives to mean. We identify when we identify our passions and start to prioritize them according to what is important and what is important now, then we can start to figure out what our next steps in life are. We need to know what our passions are. We need to know what is important to us so that we can make goals and we can start moving forward in a meaningful way. This is the last real point I'm going to talk about today. So thinking about what is your meaning and purpose in Scripture. I love the book of Ecclesiastes for this reason. In many ways, this text is not just a theology text, but it is full of psychology and philosophy because it questions the meaning and purpose of human existence. I would say the writer of Ecclesiastes was probably the first existential philosopher. And so I won't go into a lot of detail. I'm just going to highlight a few verses out of it. Right in the very beginning of the book, in verse 1, verse 2, the writer is lamenting about the meaninglessness of life. He says, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. By chapter 3, verses 1 to 8, he's talking about all things have a time and a purpose. So here we're really focusing in it. There is a purpose for all of these different things and a time to fulfill these different purposes. And I really like this idea of life has multiple purposes. Some are those great big overarching, taking the trajectory of your life kind of purpose. And sometimes it's in the moment purpose. What is my purpose right here, right now, today? So it says, for everything there's a season. And most of us have all heard this one. A time for everything that matters under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, to pluck up what's planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. Hear that last one, a time to refrain from embracing. So this is one of those times that we need to refrain from embracing. It's pretty cool when you start to find, stuff that's exactly what's happening right now today. And we see there's a designated time for this. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 22, it talks about finding enjoyment in your work. So that's what I was just talking about. So a lot of the people that teach about meaning and purpose, they tell us that we have to find work we enjoy. Instead, I say find a way to enjoy your work. It is great when you can find a job that you can enjoy, but it's which direction are we going? Are we looking for a way to enjoy the work that we have? Or are we looking for a way to find a way to make money out of doing what we enjoy? And if you can find a job that you enjoy, that's great. If you can't, find a way to enjoy the job you do. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 to 12 talks about finding someone to work with. It's so important that we find others that we can share the load with. And part of that is the emotional work that we're all doing right now in trying to figure out how to make sense of the world right now when it doesn't totally make sense right now. So share that load with others. When you have areas where you need help with something, ask for help. Ecclesiastes 9 verse 10 says, put in your best effort. Whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. So it's really important that we are doing our best in all of the things that we do. And whatever work our hands are set to, doing it to the best of our ability. So as we're starting to wrap up today, I just want you to start thinking about some things like, where do you belong? Where's those connections, those healthy connections with other people that you have in your life? What are the quality of those relationships? Think about, how are you making meaningful connections even now? Are you showing up and being present in the lives of others? What is your meaning and purpose? Focus on what motivates you. What brings you joy? What brings you satisfaction? What do you feel passionate about? What do you want to do with the rest of the life that you have? What are your goals? And more importantly, to right now, what do you want to do with this time of isolation? What are your primary goals for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of months?